Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is my pleasure to welcome you to another episode, I call it episode, a segment actually, of Half-Side Confections. Half-Side by the fireplace, a warm place to be. And confections represent tidbits that we share with you to help you to add to your repertoire. Words of wisdom, if you will, from the elders. I consider myself an elder, but I also have two other elders on this program today. And it's my pleasure to welcome them. First and foremost, let me welcome my co-host, Dr. Imani, my aunt. Hello, Dr. Imani. How are you? You look so glamorous.
Thank you, Habargan.
You look 30 years younger. What is the secret? We want to know.
Hot yoga. Hot yoga.
Yoga, okay. That's
Yeah.
what for those of you who don't know, Dr. Ibani is a Harvard-trained health director,
Educator.
Director. Well, you did all of that at the CDC, and you're a public speaker and author, and just one of the kindest people you all want to know. I keep saying that, and I mean it really. So welcome to the show, and joining us is an elder. And she is, Dr. Nabantu is, actually, she went to Nigeria with us. She's no longer just Dr. Nabantu. She's now a chief. And she and my daughter, Kelena, we went to Nigeria, and based on all the work that she has done, they felt it was necessary to accord her the title of Nwanne Dinamba of Ohoho is in the eastern part of Nigeria. Dr. Nabantu is an educator. She is the founder of the Colored Greens Festival and also the state coordinator for the Pan-African Federalist Movement. She does so many things, but just like Dr. Imani, I can't say everything they do. But for those of you who know me or don't know me, I'll just say those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Wanyo Hosimiri. I'm a spiritual leader with Chiism International, and I'm the president of the African Women Economic Consortium. I too am an author. I'm a professor at the university, two universities actually, and I'm a clinically trained life coach. So I am excited, as always, to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful discussion. And the topic today is Kwanzaa, a celebration of Kwanzaa. Every African American, quite frankly, should know about Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a holiday that celebrates people of African descent. It is the recognition of 7 principles, and we're going to go into all of that in a minute. But those 7 principles represent the foundation of Kwanzaa, and these principles are designed for nation building and formation and founded by Maulana Karinga, an African American. And based on the fact that an African American who took an African holiday, the harvesting of first fruits, I think it's imperative that we give honors to the African American ancestors as well as our ancestors, and that is why we have Chief Nwanne Dinamba to pour libations. So we've got to do libations, which is a very instrumental aspect of Kwanzaa. So before we start talking about it, we've got to pour libations in honor of our ancestors. So. But I want to ask you, Dr. Nabantu, do I have your permission to continue today?
You have my permission, yes.
Okay, thank you so very much. Please go ahead and pour libations.
Okay, this offering of libation involves a pouring of liquid, and today we're pouring water because water has no energy. We pour libation for elders that were moral and responsible. It is about honoring and evoking the right kind of energy and wisdom into our lives. So we call upon our ancestors far and near, mothers of our mothers, fathers of our fathers, to bear witness to what we have done. And by their example, to continue to inspire us toward reclaiming our African minds, regenerating our African spirit, liberating our home, and reclaiming the greatness as a people. We pour libation to bring into our midst the venerable African spirit, radiating their great wisdom, courage, dedication, and unyielding commitment to victory by any means necessary. It is an honor of our Creator, our ancestors, our children, and their children that we pour this libation for the Creator and the various manifestations of creative spirit. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour libation, Ashe, for our esteemed ancestors who laid the foundation for human civilization and who provide the wisdom by which we live and the models by which our lives are guided. Ashe.
So it is. It's say.
We pour libation for our esteemed ancestors who have suffered the atrocities and horrors of the Ma'afa, the African Holocaust, and yet demonstrated the victorious power of our African spirit against adversity by maintaining their dignity no matter the cost. We call on Marcus Garvey, Ashe.
Say. Ashe.
We call on Dr. Cress Wellston, Ashe.
Ashe.
We call on Gil Scott Heron, Ashe.
Ashe.
We call on Muhammad Ali, Ashe.
Ashe.
We call on Steve Biko, Ashe.
Ashe.
We call on Bob Marley, Ashe.
Ashe.
We call on Harriet Tubman, Ashe.
Ashe.
We call on Sojourner Truth, Ashe.
Ashe.
We call on Frederick Douglass, Ashe. We call on Benjamin Vesey, Ashe.
Ashe.
We call on Otta B. Wells, Ashe. We call on Madam C. J. Walker, Ashe. We call on Nat Turner, Desaline, Ashe. We call on Khalid Muhammad, Ashe. We call on Malcolm X, Ashe. We call on Huey Newton, Ashe. We call on Mary McLeod Bethune. We call on George Washington Carver. We call on Rosa Parks. We call on Martin Luther King. We call on W. Du Bois, Ashe. We call on Benjamin Banneker. And we call on Paul Robeson. We pour libation for these ancestors who survived and made it possible for us to be here today to continue on their valiant struggle for African liberation and vindication. Ashe. We pour libation, Ashe, and finally for our children and their children's future generations of Africans to come, that they too in their lives will come and vindicate our race from all adversities and continue to print upon the world the great genius of African humanity. We pour libation, Ashe. May the venerable African spirit engulf this occasion, this 2020 year of Kwanzaa, to reaffirm it is done. Ashe, 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 Ashe.
Thank you. I mean, make noise for the ancestors. Come on now. Dr. Imani. Make noise for the ancestors.
I did. I'm seeing a frozen screen.
Yes, thank you. Beautiful, powerful. You notice when you say Ise, I say Ashe. When you say Ashe, I say Ise. Because, a lot of Yorubas moved from the east to the west. So we're very connected. Where they say Ashe, we say Ise. So it's still the same thing. And so it is. Thank you so much.
Right.
So wonderful. I'm so glad I had you pour it because you're good at it. Very beautiful. And for all the audience there, this is really a practice that's not something we're supposed to just do during Kwanzaa. It should be something we do on a daily basis. When you get up in the morning, before you start your day, pour libations, give thanks to the ancestors, and then move forward. The ancestors are always there, and seek their intercession now and then when you have a need. If you look at my behind me, I have my family. I love Kwanzaa. My husband is an African American, so that is the celebration that I found here in America after I married him, and I loved it. I loved the principles, and quite frankly, if we follow the principles of Kwanzaa, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you talk about nation formation, the principles. What is it? Umoja, Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujama, Nia, Kuumba, and Imani. And let me tell you something. As an Igbo person, and I want those Igbos out there, this is nothing strange to us. It's a celebration of first fruits, right? Okay. And we celebrate that, except we don't celebrate in December. We celebrate it in August. Okay, it's our New Yam Harvest Festival. Okay, some people call it New Yam Festival, New Harvest Festival. But so it just tells you we are connected culturally, to the African Americans in this holiday that connects them to Africa. We too are connected with them. And that's why I really enjoy it. And I'm just going to ask each one of you for the first principle, Umoja. How do you celebrate? And what is the significance of Umoja as far as you're concerned? How do you celebrate? Why is it important to celebrate Kwanzaa? When you think about all the holidays that we we celebrate, why is Kwanzaa important? And Dr. Nani, you can talk about that.
Kwanzaa for me has been important for a number of reasons. One is of course, Umoja means unity. And so it's unity of our community, of our family, of our country, depending on, how you define yourself. But I always thought that it was important. I know when I was in graduate school up in Boston, I would always host the Kwanzaa program, and it was a way of bringing students together to celebrate our culture, to celebrate ourselves, to kind of get grounded. We're there in an institution that it was not a historically Black, college or university. And in a lot of ways we could get lost by, in terms of not focusing on ourselves and our history and our ancestry. So people really appreciated that. And so I've been doing Kwanzaa for many, many, many years. Unfortunately, my things are packed up because my life has been in transition now for a while. But in terms of libations, I have a funny story about that. My son must have been, I don't know, about 5 or 6. And we were starting our Kwanzaa program one evening. And I don't know what it was. We went right to lighting the candles. He says, wait. We haven't done libations. We haven't poured libations for the ancestors. And I'm like, wow. He was very young. And it was just nice to see that he had that understanding that we had to first start by giving recognition and honor to our ancestors who have gotten us to this point, and have carried us and still support us from the other side. So just that Kwanzaa has always been a beautiful celebration of ourselves and our lives and our accomplishments here as African Americans in this country, but also recognizing our our time in this world, from Africa to here. So
okay.
Nabantu,
Yeah, Dr. Nabantu, how about you?
I went to Ghana in 1969. That was my first year on the continent. And when I got home, someone came to me and said, "Girl, you need to celebrate this new 7-day celebration. It's 7 days of party every night for 7 days straight." I said, "What?" And then it was a principles of Kwanzaa, 7 principles of Kwanzaa, and it changed my life, literally. I decided, because of the second principle, self-determination, that I was going to name myself. But actually, I was given a name by a brother from South Africa, Nobantu, which is Mother of Humanity. And then I claimed the name Uncle Linda from West Africa in Ghana, which means keep this until the battle is won. So when I had my children, I had 6 children and 5 children. And I gave them all African names. I said, I can do anything. I can self-determine myself as an African person in this world. And I created several independent schools based on the Nguzo Saba, the 7 principles of Umoja. And unity is about bringing good to the world, bringing our culture, our history, and our culture. It was a beginning for some folks who did not understand our history and culture. It was just a beginning. And so I would embrace this this idea and bring as many people as I could into it. I invited my family, and of course they all wanted to know, well, is this another Christmas? Is this a different thing for Christmas? I said, no, this is a non-heroic non-religious holiday that anybody can celebrate because the principles are universal. And we're talking about the good of all people. So basically, it's been my life story celebrating Nguzo Saba throughout every day, throughout 365 days a year.
And it's important for people to know. I mean, you can have so many explanations about Kwanzaa. You can go by the book exactly what Kwanzaa is, right? But as you begin to celebrate it, you start to see those things about you that you probably weren't paying too much attention. All of a sudden, you go, this is really what this is about. You know, in South Africa, we say Ubuntu, okay? In the Igbo land, we say Idinotu. You know, I am because you are because of me. Our unity is based on us acknowledging that for us to move forward in anything we do, we've got to take that into consideration. Unity, umoja. I mean, yes, umoja, unity. Now, one of the things that most people don't understand about Kwanzaa, and I think Dr. Nobantu, you said it, you covered that a little bit, and that is that it is not a religious celebration, but it does have a little bit of African spirituality tied in there. And what in African spirituality that is all over Africa that we all understand is the pouring of libations, because that is the connection to the ancestors. So whereas that is cultural, but also even in the spiritual African the traditional spirituality, we make that an aspect of what we do, because whatever we do, we want the ancestors to know to come and join us. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a spiritual gathering, if it's a cultural gathering, whatever that is, that aspect is very important. That is really what connects all of us, okay, to our oneness, to our unity. I don't care if you came to America, how you came to America, but you're a child of Africa, your ancestors are African. When we pour libations together, okay, we are reconnecting with all of our ancestors. So that is one part of it that everybody who pours libation or who celebrates Kwanzaa should know. Even though this is a cultural, that's what it is, it's cultural, but you revere one aspect of it as well, and that is that connection to the ancestors, which is which could be spiritual, it could be cultural, could be however you however you do it, however you take it. For me, unity in my family, as you see behind me, I carved this I call it family unit, okay? And you have the son is carrying a kinara. There's the mother, there's the father, and there's the daughter who has the kikombe cup. All right, that's the what they call it, the unity cup. Is that right? Yeah, yeah. You show that. And doctor, for me, that stays on all through the year. You know, it's not that unity thing. We're not always successful. Trust me, we're human. We have our fights and arguments now and then. Who doesn't? All right. But you have to come back and refocus on what that Calvin is saying. He says, Happy Kwanzaa, but every day should be Kwanzaa. That component of Kwanzaa, unity, must be very, very important. Must be celebrated every day. Dr. Nobantu, you have the Kikomba Cup, which is the do you have your setup? Do you have your Kwanzaa setup?
My setup is set up all year round.
What those things mean?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Your Kikomba Cup. I mean, your Kwanzaa setup. The kinara, what you have around it, all those aspects of Kwanzaa. Dr. Mani, do you have yours, or yours is passed away?
Yes, we have a mat that represents the foundations of our people that the kinara sits on. And then we have the mushama'a, which is the candles, the seven that represents the seven principles of Kwanzaa. And we light the first candle we always light is the black candle, which represents umoja. And we go to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the green, to the red, until we end up with imani. And we also have the muhindi, which is the corn that represents the children. And we usually have one ear of corn for each child in the household, and then an extra one for children to come. And let's see, what else do we have? We have the fruits of labor. You know, we usually keep fruit in here or vegetables,
Yes.
the fruits of our labor. We have all kinds of artifacts, African artifacts. As you see, I have African dolls, and we also have, oh goodness, what else do we have?
The wadi. You
We
have
have
the
the bandera, which represents the red, black, and green flag that came to us through Marcus Garvey. And we also have the Zawadi, and a little story about the Zawadis. For our children in my household, they had to earn a Zawadi. They just couldn't just get presents because they were supposed to get presents. They had,
Yes.
they had to tell me that, how did you show unity in this household this year? How did you show Coochie Chakalia?
Mhm.
You know, there was sometimes a fuss about who's supposed to do the dishes and who's supposed to clean up their room. And there was one year nobody got anything because they couldn't prove to me they had
Oh
showed
my goodness.
wow.
unity, self-determination, none of that. None of the things were shown. They couldn't convince me that they had actually worked through all these principles. So the next year, everybody did well.
If you look behind, you see on my table there, Dr. Roberto and Dr. Imani, see,
Mhm.
I have my kinara. I
Yeah,
have my setup as well.
yeah.
Now that one I don't have every day. You know, that one I usually set it out during Kwanzaa, but it's my family portrait out there, the carving that I have every day of the year. But yes, Dr. Imani, you wanted to say something?
Well, just to reiterate, and I think both of you have touched on this, that it's so important to live the principles. You know, we learn them and we go into detail, you know, for the 7 days of Kwanzaa. But
Mm,
if you're not living your unity, your
that's right.
self-determination, collective work and responsibility, your creativity. I mean, look at what you've done. You know, you're one of the most creative people that I know. And even writing, you know, writing my books and the books that you've written, you know, all part of our creativity as well as our self-determination. Because
Yes,
we want to, if we're not writing our stories, then somebody else is telling our stories and they usually get it wrong.
that's
You
right.
know,
You
so
shouldn't get it wrong, that's for sure. It
yeah,
becomes his story, right?
they tell somebody else's story.
That's
So
right.
it's so important for us to live the principles, to really learn them, and then to integrate them into our lives every single day, you know, with our kindness, with our goodness, with our, you know, thinking of other people in the community and not just thinking of ourselves. You know, this whole thing of social isolation and all of that is keeping people separate, and we're such social people, you know, so we have to figure out how to continue to be social and to be supportive of one another, you know, even when we have these times of crises,
Mhm.
even if they're imposed. But you know, there's so much we can do to live the principles every day, every minute, you know, that we're guided by them. So Kwanzaa is a time for us to really remember, you know, and to reinforce the practice, but we have to live it every day. That's really what it's
Every
about.
day, even after Kwanzaa. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, you may put aside some of the decorations, but the
Hmm.
principles must remain. You celebrate that every day. I'm going to share this with you. Underneath, you can't see it, but under my display, I
Hmm.
have all these art pieces that represent the community. Then you have uh, the tall figurines that represents the ancestors. Okay,
Hmm.
to remind us that no matter where we are, no matter what we do, the ancestors are watching. You
Yes.
know, so it's imperative that we display, you know, this whole notion of Kwanzaa. What
Hmm.
everything that is talking about, the ancestors are watching you. I have to say this to you: when the children were little, just like Dr. Nubantu said, she had to make the kids show that they earned their gifts, right?
Hmm.
My children, they had to also display. But what I did, I got creative, right? I got these keys, like they're called the golden keys, right? And I tell them that if for instance, unity, they show unity the way they were fighting and all of that stuff, then The brownies, you got to get creative to keep their attention. The brownies, these are the brown ancestors, will come with a golden key and put it underneath the bed of the youngest child. So every morning they'll run to go. I mean, they did everything to maintain that principle. Then they'll run to the underneath the bed of the youngest person to see if they got their golden key. So if we collect 7 golden keys, then you get 7 gifts. If we don't, you don't. If you only exemplify the 3 principles, you get 3 gifts. So trust me, that was the most peaceful time in my household because they did everything so that they'll get their 7 gifts. Not expensive gifts, gifts that are handmade. Some of them are handmade, that sort of thing. So that was how I celebrated Umoja. Well, actually, the whole Kwanzaa at my house. One more thing, and then Dr. Novanto, I need you to add. I need to ask you a question. When I was the president of the North Oakland Macomb chapter of Jack and Jill, well, actually, I was the vice president. I was the program director, then the vice president, then the president. This was Jack and Jill of America in Michigan. We celebrated. Well, I introduced the Kwanzaa celebration to the group, right? This was the most exciting time for those children, right? We went from home to home to celebrate each principle. I always celebrated Umoja, the first principle, and I would dress up like Mama Kwanzaa, right? And all my African outfits. And then I have one particular room so beautifully decorated, full of gifts and all. It was so much fun to watch these children line up on my stairwell, try to go and see Mama Kwanzaa. But it became, do you understand? I had to do a lot to make them understand the importance by making it fun. And then one of them saw me at the mall. As soon as she saw me, she screamed, Mommy, it's Mama Kwanzaa. It's Mama. I mean, I missed that. And it was just absolutely beautiful. Absolutely. So anyway, that is Moja. How about Kujichagulia? Dr. Nobantu, you are an educator. How did you take that principle, self-determination, into the classroom? Or how did you use that principle?
That principle was utilized in starting my school.
Yeah.
Independent African school. After working in the public school system for 10 years, I couldn't take it anymore. And so I decided that I was going to start my own school. And so that was part of my self-determination. I was determined to do it, and I did it. I got a couple parents to come along with me, and I tried to get some of the teachers, but they didn't want to give up their insurance, And so I gave all of that up, and the little money that I got, I took that and opened up. I started off with a classroom in my home, and then I moved into another building, another house, and expanded to school. But I was always determined to make sure my children know who they were, whose they were, and where they came from, so they know how far they needed to go. And I wanted you. There was one ancestor that I missed when I did the libation, and that is a sister by the name of Queen Sister McKenya, who I call, and many of us who know her from California, the mother of Kwanzaa, because when Dr. Karinga introduced Kwanzaa at the time, he was unable to pass that information on. So he gave her one sheet of paper with all 7 principles on it. And Sister McKenya was the president of Merritt College at that time for the Peralta School District. And she took that and some fabric that he gave her to make African clothes with. And she traveled through as many states as she could throughout the United States. And she also went to Africa. And she was very determined to make sure that we celebrate Kwanzaa right. And one of the things she said when she came back from Africa is that we should always, when we have our Karimu, our feast at the end of our Kwanzaa celebration, that we take a plate of food and leave it for our ancestors.
Mm.
That was something that we still do. Many of us still do.
Yeah, we still do it in Nigeria.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, before you eat, you
Well,
put
that's where
aside.
she's
Yes.
getting it from, you know. But she is rarely mentioned in the history of Kwanzaa since 1966. And so I always want to give reverence to Sister McKinney, and you can look her up on the internet and find many, many stories about her and what she has done to transfer the concept, the principles of Nguzo Saba to many, many people, children, schools, organizations, what have you. So I've always felt I needed to be determined. She was my mentor through Kwanzaa. And so, I just want to make everybody aware of who Sister McKinney, Queen McKinney.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Dr. Imani, do you want to, what is Kujichagulia to you? How do you celebrate that?
Well, a little story because I love telling stories, and I don't know if I told you this, Mama Nabantu, but when I was in graduate school, again, I was in Boston. I decided that I wanted to do my thesis studying alternative and independent schools for Black children. I had the best time spending a lot of time at the schools to assess, the differences in schools that were designed to empower Black children, African American children. And it was in the spirit of spending time at those schools and learning about Kwanzaa, learning about a lot of our history that I did not know. But I was at one school, and each of the classrooms were named one of the principals. And I was passing by the Imani door classroom one day, and the name just resonated with me. And I'm like, oh, that's my name. That's who I'm going to be. And so, in the spirit of Kuji Chagulia, self-determination, the power to name ourselves, to define who we are, to and to carry that proudly. I decided from that day on that I was Imani, faith, and having the courage and the strength to do that. And I remember going back to school and telling people, no, my name is no longer that, it's now Imani. And they, it was early 80s, and they were like, okay, cool. And everyone just started calling me Imani. Of course, it took a little bit longer for family members to come on board, but that's family. But eventually, everybody got used to that. And then I eventually changed my last name as well to an African name, to my aunt. But it means Kujichagulia is all about self-determination, to define who you are,
Yeah.
and to move through, like I said, with power, with pride, with confidence, that you can do all things that you put your mind to, that you put your intentions to, and certainly in the context of Kwanzaa, doing what you can to facilitate that notion in other people, and especially in the children. So and that's why I started a whole program using poetry to teach about health and wellness to children, initially, because it was really important that they understood that they were in charge of their health, and that it wasn't up to doctors to determine how healthy they are or what they need to do. We talked about the importance of good food, fruits and vegetables, and exercise, and all of that, as well as being creative, through creating poetry about their health. So Healthy Haiku is the name of my program, and I have several books that I've written about it. So
you know, this is one area. This is one area that we need to really um, encourage our children. When I was in Michigan, I was invited to come to a school, and when I went to that school, it was there were it was a middle school. I think it was middle school, if I remember correctly.
mhm.
And these kids were so unruly. They were so unruly that it was almost like the teachers wanted me, because I did a lot of public speaking and went to different schools, and I'll share about Africa and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was almost like they wanted me to see how wild our children were. And trust me, baby, they were wild. I mean, I was like, oh my God, are these students, how did they teach them? Nobody was listening to the teachers. Certainly nobody was listening to me. Well, I hadn't started speaking, but they weren't listening to anybody who was doing things and all. So as soon as I was ready to speak, I went, there one. Well, suddenly everybody jerked like, what? I said, hey, who are these people? Who are you? Whose children are you? And they're looking at me. Well, I forgot the accent, number one. And I was speaking in Igbo. And I said, I picked up one child that was they were bullying him, right? Because he was big and he wasn't a very attractive young man. They were bullying him. And I said, is that your king that you're treating like that? The king of Ghana? He looks at me and says, do you know you're a king? How can you treat a king like this? And everybody. Now, the whole idea was to get their attention. And I had to do whatever I had to do that was something they were not familiar with, So that drew their attention. So I told them that the young man that you're teasing, that's the king. Look at him. He looks like a king from Ghana. And then you, from Nigeria, you look like an Eze. I just started giving them names. And they got quiet. Everybody started sitting down. Like, who am I? What about me? I'm king too. But the point of the matter was, by the time I was done, I had to let them know nobody can define who you are. Define yourself. You have the potential to be anything that you want to be. And maybe it's already destined. Do you understand? So don't buy into this whole notion that you're nobody and you can act like a nobody. No! You're descendants of royalty. You have to act accordingly. I'm not kidding you. The attitudes, the behaviors just stop. Self-determination. Our children, particularly African children, they need to know that just because somebody's opinion about you must not be your reality. You must be able to look in that mirror and say, this is who I am. Not what you think of me. This is who I am. This is a potential. So when I was telling those kids, I'm telling you, I'm not exaggerating. When by the time I left, all those teachers would say, what is she? They couldn't believe it. And I told them that, this is the king and you don't treat the king like that. And you, king, you don't act like that. You're supposed to be the leader. By the time I give them all titles of warriors and this and that, and I assign them to different African communities and what they represent in that community, I'm telling you, they stop. Our children need to know that's the importance of Kuduchagulia. It has to be told to them because a lot of times they don't hear that. They don't hear that. You're too short, you're too fat, you're too black, you do this, and that becomes a part of their repertoire. That's what they think of who they are. But if you remind them, no. Do you know who you are? Never mind what the media says. You are part of greatness. I love that part of Kwanzaa. If we can practice it, we define who we are. We do what we know we have the capacity to do. It seems like you have something to say, Dr. Nobel.
Yes. During the 10 years that I was in the public school, I was determined to introduce Kwanzaa to every single school. And because I was a radical teacher, they moved me from school to school to school because they would meet in the summer. Who's going to take Nabantu? Who's going to have her in your school? They would say, I don't know. I can't handle her. But anyway, as I went through each school, I introduced Kwanzaa. And we had Kwanzaa celebrations. We talked about Malcolm X. We had Malcolm X plays. I did the cultural piece. I did all of that, And we also had naming ceremonies when children changed their names, to get African names. And so every year, when I left, they still continued after I left. To this day, they still have Kwanzaa celebrations in every school in the district that I was in. And at the time I introduced Malcolm X, I put a nice, you had to put these nice, beautiful poster boards up as part of the teaching. And I had put up one day, by any means necessary, Malcolm X. They made me take it down They said it was too radical, you know. So, you know, and I would take a classroom and make it all a cultural piece. You know, I put cultural different things on the walls that depicted us as a people from ancient Africa until the contemporary Africa. And to the point where I couldn't take it anymore because nobody really appreciated the teachers, the staff. They didn't appreciate it, you know. So that's why I left and started my own school because I wanted to make sure that we would celebrate the principles of Nguzo Saba every single day. We even started in our community. We started a organization called Nguzo Saba. And what we do, we will honor people in the community who exemplify each one of those principles every year.
Yes.
You know, even though they didn't know anything about Kwanzaa, but we found somebody that showed that they could bring people together in unity. We have these card gifts that we would give, and we had a big banquet for years, you know, to bring out the Nguzo Saba within the community. What principles are you representing in the community? So that was quite successful as well.
And you know, I went to your school, the school that you were working with in well, right here in Atlanta.
In Decatur.
School. Oh my God. I'm telling you, see, when people practice these simple principles and see how it works through the children, when you see the confidence, I mean, when I go there, I'm just amazed at how confident these kids are because they are taught their culture. It doesn't mean that you're not, you know, a part of the whole, but that aspect of who you are, if it's taught to you, then you know how you fit in. But if you're learning just about other people's culture and not your own, you sort of get lost. And so you can tell when kids are taught African culture. When I went to Nigeria, I went to a church. I just want to mention this. Today is a Kuroche. A Kuroche is a celebration of African, one of African Arusi, the goddess of the river. But next week, we're going to talk about all of the Arusi. You know, I just wanted to say that to you today before I forget. So happy Okuroche and bountiful year for you. So we're going to talk about that next week. But when I was in, I've lost my chain of thought here. I was talking about Kujichagulia in Dr. Nubantu's school. Because the kids were taught already, they had nothing to do with me, but because they had that self-confidence, they had no qualms whatsoever to learn Igbo. I mean, they learned it like that, just like that, quick. I mean, and they had interest in it. They were not, there's some schools that I've been to that the people were embarrassed. The kids were embarrassed. You know what I'm saying? They didn't want to associate with Africa. And that's because they're not taught, to love their Africanness. But I could see these children in this school, how it works for them, how it carries over. I want to ask you about
Can I make one point on the school piece and the children?
Yeah.
It reminds me of something that happened to me in elementary school. Now I know both of you know Ossie Davis, a phenomenal actor, now ancestor. Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, his wife and life partner, also phenomenal actor. They lived in our community, and their children went to the same elementary school, middle school, high school as my family, as we did. And one day we were in school, and they said, we're having an assembly, on this particular day. And this school was mixed. It had different races, nationalities, and so forth. I always think of it as being 1/3 African American, 1/3 Italian, and 1/3 Jewish. But anyway, so we had this assembly one day, and Ossie Davis was sitting in the middle of the stage on a chair, and he was just talking to us. And I remember he asked the African American children where we were from. And we all sat there kind of like looking at each other. What does he mean, where we're from? And he started talking about Africa and the kings and the queens and the pyramids and all of the accomplishments and all the great things that Africans had accomplished through the ages in Africa and in the United States. And when I tell you the impact that that had on me and every other Black child in that room, it's like we came in without that information. And when we left, we were lifted up. Our
Yes.
energy was raised, our vibrations were higher, our self-confidence was higher. We felt like we could do anything. We could take on the world. So when you plant those seeds in children very young and tell them who they are, you're going to get totally different people than the kind of folks I was working with at the DeKalb County Jail, who, in working with them, they said, if we had had you in the 3rd or 4th grade, if one person would say, if I had you as a teacher in elementary school, I wouldn't be in here. And that's the difference that this education makes. We have to teach children when they're very young of who they are, who their ancestors are, who their families are. When we went out in the street, we were told, you're not just representing yourself. Whatever you do is a reflection on this family, our entire family, not just our nuclear family, but this is, you're representing us when you're out there. So we had to behave. We had to carry ourselves with dignity, with respect. No cursing, no carrying on, no, none of that stuff. It just didn't happen. But I just wanted to share that story about Ossie Davis, because I always think back to that moment as being like the catalyst of my introduction to my Africanness and my connectedness to a very rich history that did not start with slavery, which is what they taught in the elementary school. That like Black people started with slavery. No, we didn't. Okay, so
it's so important, and for me as a Nigerian, because I have some Nigerians, and I want to tell them about Kwanzaa, and they don't want to hear it. We lost you. Can you hear? Can we?
Yeah, we hear you. We hear you.
Okay. I some individuals that I want to share about Kwanzaa, right? And they don't want to hear it. But I want to let them know how important it is that our own children celebrate something African. Not just the dance, but something with some thought that complements their own culture. When I took African Americans from Jack and Jill, when I took them to Nigeria, and they were talking to those Nigerian kids, Igbo kids, about the contributions that have been made by African Americans, you could have dropped a pin in that room and hear it bounce up. The children were enthralled because they did not know that about African Americans. All they know is negative stuff that you see on television. But the fact that it's their people, because I try to let them know they're your people. They were taken away from us. This is who they are. Brothers and sisters, hear what they've done in the world. And the kids could not believe, the peanut butter, Washington Carver.
George Washington Carver.
They couldn't believe that. They couldn't believe it. The lights, the broom, everything that these officers of Jack and Jill was sharing with them. They could not believe any one of those. You see, so I think Kujichagulia is an imperative. So when Maulana Karenga it made that one of those principles, it's important that for us to know it's not just a December thing. It should be an ongoing thing. What we do for our children, and certainly what we do for ourselves. When we go to when you're working in a place that doesn't appreciate you, why are you there? That doesn't show self-determination. You're stagnating. You should know and believe enough in yourself to say, hey, I don't belong here. Dr. Nabantu, is there something you want to add to this so that we can go to Jima, the next principle?
All I can say is that, Kwanzaa is a way to make this, whatever you get into, you make this place a better world than what we inherited to be. And we would teach that in the classroom, when you go and use something, or you share something with someone, you leave that place, you make it better than it was when you inherited, and that's what
Mhm.
uh, some of the concepts of Kwanzaa is all about. We're trying to, it's about humanity, it's about dignity, it's about divinity, about making this place a better world, making a good world for all of us, to
Yeah.
treat the world and treat the earth so that it will be here for us. So many of us are destroying the earth, and so we have responsibility and obligation to make sure that the earth stays sane. This is our mother earth, that we have to take care of it. And so
Mhm.
we have to teach that to the children.
Mhm.
So yes,
That they are part of it too. They're part of this. This world belongs to them as well. They have a responsibility to take care of it. You're part of this. You're not what someone else tells you are, or you're not outside of what is necessary to make the world a better place. As you see on television, they're always showing everybody else showing interest in the world, the environment, but you don't see our own people. Well, I mean, sometimes you do, but not as often as we should. Okay, let's talk about Ujima. Ujima, collective work and responsibility, the third principle of Kwanzaa. One of my favorite. Who wants to talk about that?
okay. I remember working
Oh, that candle is that's a Ujima is a green candle, right? I'm sorry. The black candle is Umoja. The red candle is Kujichagulia. Then when you light the third day is green, which is Ujima. Okay, go ahead.
the work and responsibility. One of the things that in our communities, a lot of the communities they call in the hood, um,
Mm-hmm.
you walk in some of these communities, you see trash everywhere. You don't see it's been taken care of. And I remember preparing for a Collard Green Cultural Festival um, in the hood of Atlanta, and it was hosted by Representative Abel Mabel. And before we could have the Kwanzaa, we did not want people to walk up into that community seeing all the trash and all the things on the ground and what have you. So we got brooms and we got plastic bags. And 3 days before the Collard Green Festival, we started cleaning up. And then soon we saw people coming out with their own brooms and coming up with some plastic bags, because I think they felt a little bit embarrassed that here we didn't live in the community, but we felt it was a responsibility for us to clean it up because we didn't want people
Mm-hmm.
coming into the community, seeing the trash everywhere and bottles everywhere. It was a horrible mess, but we did that. And I've done the same thing in our community when I lived in East Palo Alto. There was a place where there was a lot and people just throw trash over there. We got the community together and we all got together. We got our bags together and we picked up the trash and made it look better than it was when we were there, when we inherited. So that's part of the being collective work. We all have to do it together. You can't do it by yourself. And
That's
that's what
right.
we have to learn, that our power comes through working together as a people.
And you know what? If we work together, there will not be any trashy city. There will not be any trashy village. There will not, because you know what? What the government, when you talk about collective work and responsibility, that means it is our responsibility, not the responsibility of the government. And unfortunately, we've got that mindset. Let them fix it. There's nothing that annoys me more. I've had to challenge some young people to eat something and throw it on the floor. I made them pick it up. Who's going to pick that up for you? And they look at you like you're crazy because they're looking for somebody to fix it. Collective work and responsibility means we look good together. We work together for the betterment of our communities. Dr. Imani, you want to say something about that?
Well, it makes me think of the phrase teamwork makes the dream work.
Yes,
We're so much more powerful when we work together. You
absolutely.
look at sports teams. You can't win a basketball game by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to work with the group. Everybody's got a role to play. So whether it's, that's why I like when I was younger, I played in sports. I ran track. I was a cheerleader. I played in the band. All of these were group activities, and the more people learn that in order to achieve things for a community, you have to work together. You have to
Yeah.
plan and strategize. I had the privilege and honor of meeting our ancestor Rosa Parks, who refused to give up her seat, and that started the whole bus boycott many years ago now. And I sat next to her at a luncheon where she was being honored at my undergraduate school, Mount Holyoke. And she told me, she says, I wasn't a little old lady who refused to give up her seat. She was actually quite young at the time. She was a little old lady when I met her.
Yeah.
I don't like that term because it's derogatory. But she said I was part of a movement. We planned in basements and in people's living rooms. We planned out the whole strategy. Originally, they were going to have her husband be the one who refused to give up the seat. They said, no, we really need a woman, and so they ended up using Rosa Parks, but she willingly played the part of something that was coordinated by a whole group of people in the community who said, this is not fair. We have to do this as a group, and if we have to walk to work, if we have to give rides to people, we will do what we have to do to change this policy of segregation. And so, and having to sit in the back of the bus and things like that, water fountains, separate water fountains. So she was part of a movement. And I just wanted to say that because that's how things happen. That's how things change. We don't do it by ourselves. And history is going to record it as a little old lady who was too tired and didn't want to give up her seat. But it wasn't even about that. It was about a protracted movement that she was part of.
Hey, I want to share something with you guys before we go any further. I believe because when you drive around, there are all these decorations, right? But I didn't want Kwanzaa to not have its own decorations, right? So I started the outdoor decoration for Kwanzaa as well. So I'm going to share with you what I do at home and what I put outside. Okay, just to emphasize, Kwanzaa. Okay, let's see.
Action.
South Africa, Odogu Jendo Kafo, Ezomogo, Odogu Sibolo, Isiali Halaga, Ezomogo na South Africa. Shorty worldwide, Ekenenge Corona to Kelengo, Odogu, Egadication Chada Wabu, Odogu na South Africa. Hey! Odogu ne Pepe Kuruguno,
So what do you think? I got my neighbors go taking pictures outside.
Yes, we need to have those manufactured so everybody can have those symbols outside.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We should have our own.
Because we
should have our own things outside.
We have to make Kwanzaa exciting for our children.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. If you make it, I will tell you very honestly. When you look at, this is a religious one, but the Christmas, okay? The Christmas is exciting and kids buy into it. Why? Because of the gifts and Santa Claus coming. You have to make it because the kids represent the future, right? They have to carry it to the future. Make it exciting. Make it a source of pride. And that is why I go all out. And now I was watching earlier as the cars would go by and they will stop and quietly drive back, and then you see them taking pictures. It's good. You see, the Kwanzaa is just as exciting. Anyway, let's talk about Ujamaa, cooperative economics, which is the fourth one, which is the red, right? So on the fourth day, we light. Let me reiterate. First day, guys, we light the black candle, which is Umoja. Second day, we light the red candle, which is Ujima. Third day, we light the third candle, which is, the second day is Ujichagulia.
Yeah.
Third day is Ujima, which is green. Then the next day is Ujama, which stands for cooperative economics. Talk about that. Let's talk about cooperative economics.
I'm going to tell a little story. With my children, they didn't get allowances. They became master hair braiders.
Mm.
The money they made from the hair braiding went to the family. Basically, I said I needed gas. Sometimes we needed food. And that was a skill that they have to this day as grown women. So I tell them, I said, if something happens on the job you're in, you lose it, you can always resort to doing hair, you know. And so they were young. Some of them, my oldest started when she was 7 doing hair. And they became very popular in the community. People who, women who drove the buses, women in the churches, teachers in schools, they were all, my door was always open. And people would come in and get their hair done. And then sometimes they could look at each other. I bet you that second daughter did your hair. You know, they would, compete about whose hair was the best style and what have you. But it was a learning experience for my children in terms of learning how Ujamaa works in terms of cooperative economics, bringing your money together for a reason, a purpose. And so it was a way that they learned that, well, I don't get allowances like you do because I have to work. I have to work to get the money that I have, and I have to contribute to the family. So that's something that I felt was very important to teach my children early on about being entrepreneurs at an early age. Because I know on the continent, those children start at 3 and 4 years old selling
in the streets.
Yeah, they learn entrepreneurship from the beginning. In Haiti and the Caribbean, the children know what it's like to be entrepreneurs from a very early age.
Yes.
So, that's something I tell my parents, get your children to learn a skill. I mean, even if it's picking up the leaves off the ground, they can make money doing it or shoveling snow. There's a lot of things that children can learn to do at a young age and learn how they can make money doing it and contribute back to the family.
That's right. That's right. Dr. Mani? Dr. Mani?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it looks like you're frozen.
Okay.
Oh, no, there you
yeah. The screen keeps freezing a little bit. But yes, I mean, from when we were very young, newspaper routes and things like that, where we had to find creative ways to make money, lemonade stands in front of the house, whatever we did. But also going into being an adult, I've always carried the thought that we have to be entrepreneurs. We have to do something that we can master and be the best in it and be able to sell whatever it is that we create. So whether it's a business, whether it's selling somebody else's things and incorporating as a side business, writing. I've always enjoyed writing. I'm working on about 4 different book projects right now. I'm trying to keep up with Dr. Uwa. And it's so important. How are you creating funds for yourself? You're not dependent on somebody else paying you for your time. There's so much more pride in creating your own and then being able to receive compensation for it. So, I would encourage everybody to have some craft, something that they master that they can then turn around and sell to people.
Yeah. And for me, for my family, for Ujama, we go to well, we can't do that now because of the COVID pandemic. But the day of Ujama, the fourth day, we go to shops owned by African Americans, either African Americans or Africans. It doesn't matter. Well, I need to stop using that terminology. It's Africans. We're all Africans. It doesn't matter where you're from. There's no need for that differentiation. Africans. But that's what we do. Back then, it didn't matter how far they were. we travel there to go and buy from them, because it's cooperative economics. The only way that they're going to grow, their business is going to grow, is if we support them. So we will go and support. I remember one day I went to a store that was owned by this African American. There we go again. This African, and when I came and I told her what I was going to do, I said, I just want to shop, and I've invited my friends and all of that, and my children, and they're here to shop with you. And she was, yeah. I said, yeah. So I was trying that. That's when she had never heard about Kwanzaa.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least if she heard about it, she discounted it. But when I was buying from her, she said, "Oh, happy Kwanzaa." You know, right there and then she understood what Kwanzaa was. And that particular principle, us shopping with each other. I think that's important, that we support each other. If you can't go and shop out there, you can certainly order online. You can order things online that are owned by, this is not being discriminatory. This is just being supportive of our own businesses. That's how we get bigger. Now, let us go to the next candle is green. This is day 5, which is Nia, purpose. Purpose. Yeah, there you go. That one. That Nia is purpose. So for that particular principle, the kids have to write down when they were younger. They had to write down what they thought their purpose was here on earth. Your purpose is not here to inhale and exhale and then that's it. You were brought into this world to do something, to be a part of the growth and the goodwill of the African community, and then the rest of the world. You see, we say in my Igbo language, we say, "Ara mmarasa ulo apwezi." That means beauty, goodwill starts from your home and then outside. So you have the responsibility to make sure that you are part of the good in the family, in the community, and then the rest of the world. You're not here just to be. Every one of us must have a purpose. What is your purpose? So Dr. Nabati, what are your thoughts on that? Purpose.
Our responsibility to restore our people to their traditional greatness.
There you go.
It's our responsibility to make that happen. It means that we have to resist and fight the oppression that comes to us from wherever, whether it's in this country or on the continent. And our brothers and sisters' problems is our problems, and we have to work through them. And it's our responsibility to bring good to the world. So we have to fight this oppression that we are in, because we want to be free to govern ourselves and to control ourselves, and not be dependent on some government or somebody else. And education is so important, which is one of the reasons I started school, because our children need to understand that they have a responsibility to make our lives better for the next generation. Each generation is to make the next generation a better place. And where we are now looks like we're going backwards. But education, again, will help overcome and knowing what our history is, so we don't keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
Over and over. That's right. That's right. Dr. Imani, do you have something to add to?
Yeah, when I was managing the education programs at the DeKalb County Jail, one of the things that I was always intent on teaching and on driving home this point is that we're all here for a purpose. We were all born and designed in a divine way, and that we're here to do a specific thing to contribute to the world. So through the talking, through the meditations, through the healthy haiku workshops and the poetry writing, I would always challenge them to think back and to remember, who they are and what it is they're here to do. Otherwise, they're taking up space. I have a friend who says if you're not walking on the edge, then you're taking up too much space. You should be at least, if you're not totally clear about your purpose, you should be just open to it, meditate, think about it, experiment with different things, and it will hit eventually. You have to understand that you're here divinely. You're here on a mission, and once you get that, once you tap into that, you become so much stronger, so much more successful in life, whatever you do. Instead of muddling through and following other people's ideas of what your life should be and who you should be, you know, we're all uniquely designed, and we can be inspired by that and do that work. And I held up my book. I just wanted people to I don't know if you could see it or not. This is the last book that I did, Healthy Haiku 3, How to Fight Childhood Obesity, one poem at a time. And this is really important because I use this as a platform to teach the children and to teach adults. And I did use it at the jail. But I realized that my purpose a long time ago was in teaching, and in teaching specifically around health and wellness. So, you know, I just wanted to share that, and it makes life easier. I'm always multitasking, but it makes life easier in terms of saying, nope, that's not on my path. Nope, that's not part of my purpose. Sounds good, but nope, that's not something I should do. And usually when I get involved in things that are not part of the purpose, my purpose, it usually doesn't work. So, you know, just to share that in terms of being tapped into who we are and what our purpose is in life.
You know, there's a poem that goes, it's a short poem. It says, I shall pass this life but once. Any good thing that I can do, any good deed that I can do, let me do it now. Let me not defer it, for I shall not pass this way again. That's purpose.
Yes.
That's purpose right there. And what you're talking about, the book, your book is your purpose. And you've got information in there that will help people, you know, because our goal in life must be to be a constructive part of the total well-being of not just ourselves, but everyone else, you see. So I love that poem. And so let's go to the next one, which is Kuumba.
Creativity.
Creativity, my favorite.
Your favorite.
I'm always creative. I love to create. I remember when I was during our celebration of Kwanzaa in Michigan, and I was trying to see, okay, how do I get the kids? My voice is not the best. As a matter of fact, I had intended to include that song that I sang. And how do I get the kids to learn about the Kwanzaa principles? So now I'm not going to sing it today because my voice is so off. But I did create a CD for children, and it talks about all the principles in a sing-songy way, you know, so that all the kids, if I ask them what is the Kwanzaa, what are the Kwanzaa principles, they just sing that song. And right off the bat, Kwanzaa is a holiday to celebrate you and me. Reaffirm traditional African social ways. Harvesting the first fruits or crops of the season. We celebrate the principles that Kwanzaa's rooted on. First, there's Umoja, which means unity. Ujichagulia, self-determination. Then there's Ujima, collective work and responsibility. The first three principles that Kwanzaa's rooted on. Then I go on and on and on, and it goes through all the principles. And if you ask those kids, what are the Kwanzaa principles? Quickly, they can tell you. And like Dr. Nubantu said before, you've got to make it fun for them. You've got to do something. Use your creativity to make it fun for them. So you're walking around, these kids will say, Dr. Samira, I can sing the Kwanzaa song. And by singing all those principles, and it can tell you what it means, it becomes less a chore. It becomes something fun to do. And I came up with all kinds of songs for the children. Yeah, and they learned all of it, and now they can really tell you all about Kwanzaa. So, anybody want to add to that? Kuumba, creativity.
We have come up with many, many, many songs on the different principles of Nguzo Saba.
Yes.
African songs, just songs of appreciation for who we are as a people. And
Yes.
so one of them is Kwanzaa, a happy celebration. Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa. Habari gani? I can't remember it all. But anyway, we did that, and then I said a mo, and then junior too. And we go through all the 7 principles. So our children will learn by seeing the principles and what they meant.
Yes.
So we did a lot of that. Of course, we did, our children were part of a dance troupe. And we would dance throughout the
Yes.
day. They would dance at Kwanzaa time, So
I mean, I went to one of your events. Oh my God, those kids can drum.
the drummers. Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We did drumming, and we did South African boot dance. We did a lot of different creative things. We even did trampolines, where children learn how to jump over themselves
Yeah.
and all. Yeah, a lot of things. And of course, we learned how to sew. We learned how to make things with our hands. We made flags. We did all these things. And then sometimes we have a Kwanzaa Children's Day. Well, we
Mhm.
sometimes we velvet big, huge posters that the children would do. Each age group would do something different. But the oldest children would make these huge, um, is it velvet? I'm not sure what it is. I still have them today. We made 3 huge ones, and I kept them all. And sometimes I bring them to different Kwanzaa celebrations. We have them. Hopefully one day we'll be back in a space where we'll be face to face, where we can display these artistic posters made out of felt that our children did. And they can still do them. For those of you who are looking, all kinds of activities the children can do during this time and make principles, like making each drawing the principles, the symbols. Creativity is such a part of our people. We are the greatest creators on the earth.
That's right. I want to read something that one of our viewers has written here, which is really quite encouraging. Um, this is from Ukunda Charles. He says, this Kwanzaa teaching is very motivating, encouraging. Discovery of our purpose on earth is important. I have learned a lot. I'm grateful to be part of the show today. Thank you, Dr. Uwa, Wane Dinamba, and Dr. Imani. I love you. Oh, isn't that special?
Thank
We
you.
love you too, Kunna Charles. Thank you for that wonderful, wonderful comment. Before we go any further, I do have, I tend to read what people have written. Let's see. From North Faratu, they talk about Mama Kwanzaa. Those were some great memories. And let's see, we've got uh, North Faratu also indicates that the principle must be followed every day, not just 7 days in December. Principles are to be followed 365 days in our lives in some manner or form. Actions speak better than words, that's for sure. And then Divya Uchwaja UD has indicated that wanted to know why it's important to celebrate an African culturally centered holiday for people of African ancestry. I think we pretty much answered that question. And of course, they all wish us a happy Kwanzaa, and so we're going to continue. Um, let's talk about Nia. Well, we talked about Nia, didn't we? We talked about Kumba. The last part is Imani. Ha, Imani, that's your name. Imani stands for faith. Dr. Nobantu, can you show it on your setup there, the Kwanzaa Kinara, which is the last one, which is let's see, that's green. That's the last one, Imani. Imani is green. That's the last candle. We light that on the 7th day. So what is Imani? What is Imani? What is that? What's the significance of Imani?
Faith means you can do whatever
Can you
you
hear
want
me?
to do. Okay, who's going to go? Imani?
No, go ahead, because Dr.
Okay. My children again have learned very much what faith means. And
Yes.
sometimes you have to set a vision of what you
Mhm.
want to see happen, and through faith, you'll make it happen. For example, when I went to Ghana in 1969, I saw an article in a small newspaper at the University of Berkeley, where I graduated from, about a trip to Ghana. And I immediately called because I wanted to so badly to go to Ghana. I had no money, nothing, but I was going. I didn't care how I was going to get there. I was going to find the money. I was going to go. And so what I did was I went through. I learned that at the university, the sociology department, the anthropology department, the psychology department did not talk to each other. So I went to each department and told them I already had $250, and I need 250 more to make this trip, and I didn't have a dime. But I was able to get money from each one of those different, I guess, schools of education. And I also went to the church. I went into the community. I went to businesses, and I was able to get the money to go. And I was tell people, I said, well, I don't have the money to do this. I don't have the money to do that. All you have to do is get the faith and the vision that it will happen. The same thing happened in July in 2019 when I was able to, all of my children who had been to Africa in 1982, that was another faithful adventure I didn't know how I was going to do that. I was partly on welfare in 1982 when I took all of my children to Africa because I wanted them to see with their own eyes what Africa was about. I didn't want them to see what was on the TV. I wanted them to see and feel and experience for themselves what Africa was alike. And then finally this last year, 2019, I took all of my children, all of my grandchildren to Africa. And they all said at the beginning, I don't know how we're going to do this. I said, just believe that it can happen. We can make it happen if we want it to happen. So that was the faith that we all used to make these trips materialize, and a very eventful experience for all of us.
Absolutely. I want to read what I wrote about Imani. Faith, having the faith to know that we can and we shall certainly overcome, succeed, we can win. By having the faith and respect for oneself and in our people to try again and again. We must believe in the parents, teachers, the church, and our leaders that they will do their part. We must pray, have faith, and believe that God will guide their hearts. Chineke will guide their hearts. We must have the faith in our great people who have overcome the struggle of their history and who have the confidence, conviction, courage, ability, and faith to claim our long fought victory. We must have the faith in each other. I think we lost Dr. Nubantu because her stream was.
You talking about Imani?
I beg your pardon, Dr. Imani. Her stream was kind of shaky, so hopefully she'll come back so that we before we end the show. But we must have faith in our things, our elders, our leaders. We must have the faith and courage to move forward and work to make that become a reality. Whatever it is we want as a people, we can have. I always tell people there's nothing anybody has that you cannot have. You just have to work for it. You have to believe in it. Go put anything that you want, write it on or put it on your mirror and say, I claim that. Claim it. Anything you claim becomes a reality because in your mind, when you claim it, then you work towards it for it to become a reality. But you have to have that faith in your ability. We as a people have to have faith in our things. We have to have faith in our people. We have to have faith in our leaders. We have to believe and hold our leaders to task. We just don't have faith and just let them run wild. We certainly have the responsibility to make sure that we can have faith in them. You know what I'm saying? So it is important when we celebrate Kwanzaa to understand that all these principles, if we practice them one at a time, we practice unity, coming together. We cannot work. We're not an island. It's not a one-man army. We are in this fight together. Kujichagulia. Let's define ourselves, speak for ourselves, and not have other people define and speak for us. Ujima, collective work and responsibility. Let us make sure that we keep up our communities, that we work together, we help each other. You know, one hungry woman is too much. One man on drugs is too much. One hungry child is too much. Collective work and our environment, if we see an environment, our environment is dirty, we clean it up. Nobody's going to do it, but that's our responsibility. Ujama, cooperative economics. If you know a store owned by an African that's struggling, go and help them. They're not going to succeed if we don't help them. Then we have a responsibility as well to make sure that in NIA, what is our purpose? Define your purpose and work towards your purpose. And it must incorporate helping our own people, your community. Last but not least, having faith. Faith in ourselves, faith in our families, faith in our leaders, faith in our communities, and faith, understanding that if we work hard, anything that we want for ourselves and our communities, we can have it. It's not just other people who can have it. We can have it. And we say, go ahead. You seem like you have something you want to say.
I just want to share a quote from Dr. Karinga about Imani. And he says, we must have faith that a different future is possible, that we can, as Ras Fanon urged us, start a new history of humankind and other blessed people in the world. Bring into being a new world, a new man and woman who will cherish, respect, and reaffirm each other, sustain the good world, and pass on this good and legacy to future generations.
And with that, we say, as we say in Kwanzaa, Harambe. And we're going to say Harambe 7 times, even though we're celebrating just Umoja today because we're not having another show on this. We are, oh, here, she's back. Let's.
I'm not sure what happened.
I know.
I heard you and then I couldn't. Yeah, but I heard you say some wonderful things about Imani, and that was wonderful. So I take all good stuff. So.
Yeah, feel free to make your ending comment.
Okay, I don't know what the other ending comments were, but this has been a wonderful, wonderful show. I'm inspired whenever we go through the meaning and the intention of all of them. It pumps me up. I'm looking forward to a wonderful Kwanzaa season. And of course, because we know it's not just the moment. The moment is to celebrate, but the importance is to carry these principles in our hearts, in our lives, in our actions, in our behaviors, in our beliefs, 365 days of the year. And that's what this is really all about. So thank you so much for hosting this show, Dr. Uwa. Dr. Nabantu, it's a pleasure to be with
you. Thank you.
I am so grateful to 2 of you, and I'm wishing you a very happy Kwanzaa. You have shared so much, and we didn't make it an hour show because you can't make Kwanzaa just an hour show. There's just so much to talk about. So that's why we increased the number of minutes. We added additional minutes to it. So thank you, and thank you everyone who joined us wherever you are. Ukuna Charles, Nos Faratu, Demis Wanyoha, and there are a whole list of other people here. But these are the individuals who made comments. Thank you all for joining us. We have another show tomorrow. And for those of you who have been joining our show, I hope that you join us because it's a celebration of African culture on the continent. So we are going to, this is a season of celebration. So we are introducing all these celebrations that we as African people celebrate or should celebrate as well. Okay, thank you. So let us, let's have the elder end it with the Harambes. Go ahead, Dr.
Okay, I'm going to do my little pledge before we do the 7 Harambes. For the fruition of African power, for the triumph of African nationhood, we pledge to this nation to the building of better people and a better world. our total devotion, our total resources, and the total power of our mortal lives. We are the first and the last, the Alpha and Omega. We pledge to think African, speak African, love African, and pray African because we are African. We'll do
Yes.
African things today to ensure us of a united African states tomorrow. Count of Tatu, we're going to do 7 Harambe's. On the last Harambe, we're going to hold it as long as we can.
Yes.
And build it, Tatu. Harambe.
Hey. Harambe.
Harambe. Harambe. Harambe. Harambe. Harambe. Let's all come together.
Happy Kwanzaa, everyone.
Happy
Thank you
Kwanzaa.
so much.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Okay. You guys have a wonderful day.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.